Welcome to the Love Lab podcast, a safe place to get real about sex. Whether you're man, woman, single or couple, this is the show for you because, well, sex matters. We are your hosts, Kevin Anthony and Céline Remy.
All right, welcome back to the Love Lab podcast. This is episode 87, and it's titled Sex Drive, Floppity, Labia, Masturbation, Butt Plugs, and More. So this is actually a listener questions episode, and we've got some really good questions from our listeners for this one. You know, one of the things that we really love to do is we always have ideas, and there's things that we want to share that are sort of part of our agenda of like what we want to bring out to the world. But we really love when people actually reach out to us and ask us questions, because this is like where the rubber hits the road. This isn't theoretical or ideas. It's like, here's somebody's real life struggles and they're seeking help. And so I'm actually excited to get into some of these questions, because I think a bunch of them are really common things that people experience on a regular basis.
Absolutely. So we want to thank you, all of you who are tuning in every week, listening to the Love Lab podcast and sending us emails that you love the show or having questions, because we exist because of you and we love you. So thank you. Before we dive into our first questions, and I think we've got like 6 of them, so it's going to be pretty fun.
We'll do our best.
If not, we'll do a part 2, or we'll save them for another time. Anyway, they will get answered at some point. If not today, soon enough. But let's give a shout out to our sponsor, Power and Mastery. So if you want to join the secret club of men who are great in bed, then check out Power and Mastery. You can find it at powerandmastery.com. It is the most complete sexual mastery training for men. So go to powerandmastery.com and find out how you too can be a sexual rock star.
Ooh, yeah, the ultimate sexual rock star. All right, we got a lot to cover, so let's dive into our very first question. And I don't know who this one comes from, but
this was Joe, and
Joe.
some have names, some don't, and we understand that most people want to keep things anonymous, so whatever that is. But this is a male listener. He refers to himself as male, 44 as his age.
Yeah, so all right, I'm going to read it through just quickly once, and then we're going to kind of dissect it, because it's kind of a long question. There's a lot of pieces here, but they're all tied together.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so from Joe, your so-called remedy sounds pretty promising. Well, do you have kids? We've got a 5-year-old single kid. How do you think you can help us? I, male 44, would like to have 7 to 10 times sex a week. To my wife, 47, is wanting me to be happy with 1 time a week and none preferably in her 10-day menstruation period. We're pretty desperate as divorce has been brought to the table over this issue. We used to have 5 to 7 times a week sex before our son was born. We have no grandparents, and time alone can only be achieved by hiring a babysitter, but that would get pricey, and I work night shift 2 weeks on, 1 week off, and my wife has come to the conclusion that having sex at night makes her not being able to sleep even after orgasm. Sex in the morning isn't her thing, as she needs till about 9 to 10 a.m. to wake up and function. And she just today said she never thought that she wouldn't be able to ever want enough sex for her man. Sex was also a substantial reason that I married her. Okay. All right. I'm not going to try to answer that whole thing myself and then have you answer the whole thing. We're just going to take it piece by piece, and then we'll each kind of give our own ideas. All right. So here we go. Starting out with, well, great. Your coaching, your products sound awesome, but do you have kids? All right. First of all, no, we don't have kids, but we have both been in relationships where we did have kids. In other words, our previous partners had children, and so we have multiple years of experience with what it's like to live with, raise kids. Yes, having kids definitely changes the equation. There is no doubt about that.
This is why we don't have kids.
Yeah,
Full disclosure,
exactly.
we looked at the pro and cons and our ages and life in general, and we were like, we love each other, we're getting older, and it's not worth it for us. There's so much more we want to do, and it's okay to pass on that. And I think I really wanted to just put this in there because it's not an obligation to have kids, and it's also good to have kids and know what you're getting into.
Yeah, and so the reality here is you heard the entire question, and the very first thing that I would tell this person if they were in a coaching program with us is that having kids is going to cause you to have to change your expectations. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now that brings us to the second part of it, which is that he wants sex 7 to 10 times a week. Now, all right, let's think about that for a moment. The first question I would ask Joe is how he defines sex 7 to 10 times a week. In other words, for some people, and we have friends that tell us this, they're like, oh my God, the other night was so great. We had sex 3 times. And so for us, like, wait a minute, 3 times in one night. See, I would call that you had sex once. You may have ejaculated 3 times as a guy during that session. But to me, that's having sex once. So I would be curious how he defines that. Because if he's defining it from the point of view of, yeah, we had sex 3 times tonight in an hour and a half, I'm going to go, okay, well, that changes things a little bit because now I understand that you could literally have sex 3 occasions a week, and yet that would be your 7 to 10 times. But if that's not the way you're defining it, and you're defining the whole session of lovemaking as one time, which is what we do, which is what I think is kind of a better way to do it, you realize then that 3 of your 7 days a week, you'd have to have sex twice during that day. Now, that's awesome, and sometimes we have sex twice in a day, but I would really caution Joe and say that is a huge, with or without kids, that's a big expectation.
We don't have sex 7 to 10 times a week.
We would love to. We simply don't have the time.
No, I wouldn't want to have sex 7 to 10 times a week.
Well, I probably
Sorry,
would.
love. Well, we have sex, like a quickie is about 30 minutes, and usually it's over an hour to an hour and a half. I feel very fulfilled with that. When we have really good sex, I'm good for 2 to 3 days where I'm still like riding the wave, still feeling like orgasmic and happy and tingly from the experience. I don't feel a need to like go at it again.
Okay, so there's two different answers to that part of his question, which is the first one is you have to be a little realistic. I mean, the reality is unless you're retired and you have nothing else to do, how do you have that much time? I mean, maybe if your sex is 5-7 minutes long, sure, that's easy. But like if you're having good quality sex, how do you have that much time?
Yeah, we want to know, like, how did you make that work before?
And then, but the second part is exactly what you just said, which is that if you're really having good quality sex, you feel fulfilled sometimes for days. Mm-hmm. And that's really true. I feel the same thing too. Like if I have really great sex, like it's not that I don't want to have sex the other days, but I don't feel the need to have it because I'm like still floating from the day before or the 2 days before. So.
Absolutely. And so when I read that question, that was literally my reaction to this was like 7 to 10 times. And so let me give it straight to you here, Joe. Like as a woman, I'm already overwhelmed by the amount. So I can have some empathy with your wife being like, okay, that's a little too much. Now, I also want to say that what kind of sex are you giving her? Because, you know, if she's not really wanting sex, she's probably not having the kind of sex she wants. And that's just the reality of things, right? And, you know, she might be used to having the type, like, just like this quick sex or whatever kind of sex you have, not knowing that there's something better. But here's the thing, you guys have been together for at least 5 years since you have a 5-year-old. That means that she's gotten used to some probably not so good sex. And you don't know what you're missing out. But when you don't have good quality, after many years of having just not good quality, you're just like, what's the point?
Yeah, and, you know, at the end of this question, he says that she said she never thought she wouldn't be able to ever want enough sex. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when you're telling us that you used to have sex 5 to 7 times a week, which was kind of the next part, and you're telling us that she never thought she would get to that point, what that's really telling me is that the sex was probably okay enough for her before, but she's probably just depleted. She's burnt out. She's tired. Like, we know what it's like to take care of a young kid, and it is all encompassing and exhausting, especially for the mom. That doesn't mean that you as a guy aren't working hard too, because you're out there working all day long, and then you're coming
all
home.
night long for Joe too.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to that too. But there is a certain reality that kids want a lot more of their mom's attention and energy, and it's draining. It's super draining. So, a piece of advice there would be find out what you can do to try to ease her experience.
And for her, that's really like helping her to get back into that place of feeling feminine and relaxing. It is really easy for us women to go into our get shit done, do it all mode, somewhat a little bit more masculine. And it's very relevant because I was in that mode last week, and Kevin was just like, oh my goodness. Like, and the more you get into like, I get shit done, the less sexual you feel as a woman. But what's weird is you don't even realize that you're getting off balance. And so I needed Kevin's help to be like, hey, Céline, slow down. Notice how you've been reacting lately. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. And then giving myself permission to do nothing, or giving myself permission to take a bath, or whatever that looks like. But for her, it's things that would help her boost her oxytocin level, because with lower oxytocin's level, she's going to have really hard time to even achieve orgasms, to have a libido. And so things that could work for her could be like spending time in nature. It's more me time. And like Kevin said, because you guys have a 5-year-old, she's probably giving a lot there. And it would be more of time without the kids, just for herself, not working on the house, like cleaning, ironing, doing laundry or anything else, but times for herself, of smelling flower, going on a walk, watching a romantic movie, reading a book, getting a massage, getting together with girlfriends, like this type of things. And it doesn't have to be really long. With one of the couples that I worked with, and they had 2 or 3 kids, I forgot, but they had more than one. And what they decided on doing was that when he got home, basically he gave her about a half hour to an hour, depending on the day, where basically he took the kids and I said, mommy has some mommy time right now. And she goes upstairs, locks the door. Nobody goes and asks mom any question or asks anything of her. And that's her time to unwind. And that helped her to feel more receptive to becoming again intimate with her husband, because she had a little bit of time to like, distress. And so that's a strategy that we put in place, and that has worked for another couple. Of course, we looked at a lot of different angles. We're just giving you a quick fix, and that's not the only thing, but that's just one idea.
Yeah, and the reality is that you mentioned in here, Joe, that the only time you get time alone is by hiring a babysitter, and that can get expensive. The reality is you have to find strategies that can offload some of the stress level for her. And yourself too, but definitely since she's the one that is experiencing the lower libido, you got to find ways to offload her stress. And that can be hiring babysitters, giving her alone time, taking on a little bit more of the workload of stuff that's going on. She's got to be able to relax and de-stress if she's going to want sex. Let's go to the next part on this, which is you talk about the fact that you work night shift 2 weeks on and 1 week off, and she doesn't want to have sex in the morning and she doesn't want to have sex in the evening. Well, obviously with very mismatched schedules like that, and you're taking the evening and the morning out of the equation, it doesn't leave a whole lot left. So here's my advice to you on that one, is what are your priorities in life? Now, I know it's not easy to just say, okay, I'm going to up and leave my job or do something else. Like, I get it. It might not even be financially possible. But I do want to put the seed out there that you have to decide what's most important for you in your life. And if your relationship, your sex life, and your family are high priority, consider the fact that working 2 weeks in a row of night shift is not supporting your relationship and your family, and you might need to make a change.
I want to add to this question before we move on to our next question. I know we're spending quite a bit of time on this one, but when I read that she has 10 days of menstruation and that she can't seem to function before 9 to 10 a.m. in the morning, there's something off here. And I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you that most likely she's going through perimenopause or menopause, and that her hormones are out of balance. That would also be why she's not feeling so excited and she's depleted. And so bleeding for 10 days is not normal. It's too long. So, and that can happen too when you're in perimenopause. So I would say look into somebody who can help working naturally through rebalancing the hormones, whether it's through a naturopath or acupuncturist or something like more natural to rebalance the body. But 10 days is too long. It shouldn't be that long. And not being able to function before 9 to 10 a.m. tells me that you're not getting the kind of rest that your body needs in order to be able to wake up refreshed. Yeah. That means, again, your hormones are out of balance there. And so whether it's changing habits, going to bed earlier, turning off the TV, there's a lot of things here that could be applied that we don't have enough time to get into that, but like this is one angle that needs to be addressed. And from what you mentioned, it tells me that it is out of balance.
Yeah, it sounds like her adrenals are really, really shot.
It does. And so when that happens, you got to take drastic measures. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to pop a pill and stuff. There's lifestyle changes. There's eating differently, different things in life, and like slowing down. And that's going to require more than just, let's have sex.
Yeah. So here's what I would say to Joe. We gave you a ton of information on how to help solve this situation. And there is so much more that we could give you. I would say that if you're really serious about fixing this problem, that you and your wife should either work with us or somebody else like us. It doesn't have to get to the level of divorce.
And any investment you make in your relationship is going to be way less than what a divorce would cost and what would create for your family. Just remember that. True. Remember that.
All right. We spent way too much time on Joe. Let's move on. Number 2. You want to read it for us?
I do. So this is from Goddess Megan. I am done with criticizing my loose skin floppity labia and in general soon to be 44 vagina. Please talk to me about loving and strutting my every part, and what do men think of this, particularly those that are younger and firmer. All right, Kevin, give our Goddess Megan your opinion because she's really interested. Then I'll get in.
Yes, I can't wait. So I have been very fortunate that I've seen quite a few vaginas, and they span the age ranges. Even when I was in my 30s, I had some lovers who were in their 40s and not quite 50 yet, but definitely your age-ish. And I can tell you that from my experience, age had nothing to do with how their vagina looked. In other words, you know, as we get older, we get wrinkles on our face and, you know, like things change, we get spots and all. But I never looked at a woman's vagina who was in her 40s or 50s and was like, oh, that looks like an old vagina. Like, I've never seen that. I've seen vaginas that were well cared for, and maybe some that were not as well cared for. But I've never seen signs necessarily of age in a vagina. And I will also say too that functionally, the older lovers that I've had all worked just fine, and so I know that we all look at our own bodies and we see all these things that other people don't see. I do it all the time too. You know, I'd say things to you like, oh, you know, I got this wrinkle here or this thing here. And you're like, what? Because most of the time you don't even notice those things. We're always harder on ourselves. And, you know, 44, you're younger than I am. I'm like, trust me, I do not look at 44-year-old women and think they look old. I don't. I really don't. I see a lot of 44-year-old women. I go, ooh, yeah, I'd like to have sex with her.
So, Megan, first I want to congratulate you for saying you're done. You're done with criticizing every part, including the in between your legs part. And that's a huge shift because we women are very judgmental, especially of ourselves. We constantly put standards out there of what we should look like or what the perfect version of ourselves. We measure ourselves all the time and we fall short all the time. And so when we have these impossible standards to look like, we can never be successful. So understand understanding that and saying you are done and you want to change the dialogue is a huge part. The second part is to really change the dialogue. So I would love to encourage you to spend some time with your vagina, with your labia. I actually have a meditation. It's a free gift that I offer to women. It's a radiance and pleasure meditation that takes you through connecting with your body and most specifically your lady parts very differently and with a lot of love. So we'll put the link in the episode show here for you to do it. So I would really encourage that you do that one. But yes, start putting some loving there and don't look at it from that critical point, but look at what are the things you love. Maybe it's the way that I personally find my vagina much more dexterous than when I was 20, because now it's I've been spending many years feeling her, touching her, connecting with the muscles, understanding how she operates, and I'm yeah, I have a much better handle on my vagina than I did when I started having sex and when I was 20. So can you celebrate that about yourself? If not, spend time to get to know her. And then, yes, our vaginas do change, but like Kevin said, most guys won't even realize that. We do, because we look at ourselves. And so whether you had kids, it could have affected. When our hormones start to change, whether we're in perimenopause or menopause, it could, the skin could be a little less tight, or things could change a little bit, but it's minor. It seems bigger from your point of view than it is from anyone else. And really don't focus on that, because it don't change anything about how you feel things. They're just aesthetic things. So it's just about embracing who you are. And then vaginas come in all shapes and sizes. And so there are labias that are more prominent. There's no labias. There are one longer, one shorter. There could be floppity. They could be really tight.
Across all age ranges.
Yes.
So what you might think is a floppity labia because you're old, there could be 20-year-olds with that same floppity labia. And that's just the way they were born.
It's a beautiful drape that is available for some women. And it's just embrace it. What helped me change, I have more prominent labia, and it took me a while to really love myself, because I had boyfriends who made fun of me because they were sticking out.
Boo.
Exactly. And so that took a lot of time. But here's what, I had a lover one day, and he started calling them my angel wings. And I have to say that reframe really changed how I started to connect and love my pussy and my labia. So I want to invite you to spend some time with a mirror, love it, and see what are the parts you can enjoy and how you can reframe. And rather than saying my floppity labias, it could be my beautiful angel wings, or my petals, or whatever inspires you, whatever brings love. Because to me, floppity labia does not bring love.
Yeah, and so basically there's nothing wrong with you. You just need to amp up the self-love a little bit. And actually, if you haven't seen a lot of different types of labias across all age ranges, when you called them petals, you just reminded me of somebody we know who actually made a book called Petals. And it's all pictures of women's labia, and they span every age range, every size, shape, color. And, I'm always surprised that a lot of people, and this goes for men too, they don't realize the huge variation in penises and vaginas, size, shapes, colors, tilts, whatever, and so when people see that book, they go, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not so weird. Look at all this huge variety out here. So that's something you might want to look into too if you're having trouble with that issue.
And we'll put the link below. It's Petals by Nick Karras if you're looking for it, and the link will be in the show notes again. All right, so let's move on. Before we get to our third question, we have a question for you. Are you longing for more connection, deeper intimacy, and red-hot passion in your relationship? Well, we know that some of you are, right? So if you're a committed couple who loves each other but has lost the spark and has fallen into a boring routine, we have a special invite for you. We've created Relationship Synergy, which is a cutting-edge, next-level intimacy program for the modern couple to help you fire up your love life. So give us 90 days. That's all, 90 days, and we will help transform your love life forever. And you got a little bit of a glimpse of what it could look like when we were talking to Joe earlier. So yeah, go out to CelineRemy.com/synergy and you can find more about our relationship synergy program.
Yeah, and what we did with Joe is just scratching the surface on that.
That was 90 seconds versus 90 days with us. Okay, fine. 15 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, question number 3 has to do with masturbation.
Mm-hmm.
I know you did a few podcasts about it, but different angle. I'm easily aroused by my man, but not so much on my own. With another person, it's not like he has to work hard to get me hot. I get aroused seeing him, touching him, and just being in the same place. But I am on the quest to learn more about my body and orgasms, and for that I am exploring on my own. But it's so hard to get it going. I am rarely horny on my own, and when I start to get myself in the mood for the first 10 to 15 minutes, I feel silly. I want to see what else is out there, bigger orgasms. This is a great question.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, so who starts on this one?
All right, well, I'll go first because I'm a woman. I've got a vagina, so let me tell you how to operate it.
You do?
Absolutely. Well,
I'd like to explore that.
Again, let's congratulate you for wanting to explore your own body, because that's a step that many women miss. They always expect somebody else to teach them how they operate, and it's very important to know how your own body works. As a matter of fact, no matter how expert your lover is, you can learn new things. Like, I spent time the other week really exploring my cervix and the inside of my vagina in a really different way. And then I called in Kevin and we made love, and we started feeling things differently because I had this new awareness. I was able to feel things differently. The way his penis was touching me, and I could really tell when he was on my cervix or which position worked better. It was fascinating. But all of that was, I was able to do that because I spent the time masturbating. Now, when I started masturbating, I actually never really found a way to find it really interesting until I was about 23, because I would be bored. I would fall asleep, literally. That's how excited I was about masturbation. I would fall asleep because I was boring. And so what I had to do was to shift. Number one, I had to really understand how my body worked. Find my clit, and then from my clit, find the hot spots within. So I had to get a real anatomy lesson to understand what worked and what didn't work. And then how I like to be stroked. Number two, I had to let go of expectations about how things were to happen. And that's huge, because when you're with somebody else, you can surrender and let go, and you let them do things. When you're on your own, it's an interesting place to find how can you surrender while at the same time doing the things. So you have to be both the masculine and feminine, right? And you can't be caught up too much in one. If you just surrendering, nothing happens. And if you're just doing, you can't surrender and get to bigger, higher orgasms. So it's finding the fine line between what you're doing, the feeling of it, and the doing of it, and just being in the experience. And then it's about being okay with whatever arises, because we carry so much shame around our bodies, around our genitals, around masturbation, that you even say it where you're like, I feel silly. And it's becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable, meaning that it's okay that you might feel silly, that you might feel embarrassed, that you might feel bored, or whatever else arises. And that you don't let that stop you from having an experience with yourself. That you actually stay with yourself and say, yes, I'm feeling silly, and I'm going to masturbate this silliness out of me, or whatever that is. And it's the same when you're making love with a partner. It's not always spectacular. It's not always mind-blowing. And sometimes things come up, but it's about being okay to stay with what is and seeing where it goes from there, rather than fighting and should be something different, because it never works.
Yeah, what a fantastic answer.
Thank you.
I don't really there are things I could say, but you just answered it so well. I don't really need to say a whole lot. All I'll say is congratulations on exploring your body. I think everybody should do that. And it definitely will lead you to bigger, better things. So just keep on the journey, and don't feel silly about it. I know there are certain religious views or things that say maybe masturbation isn't good, this or that. You throw all that out the window. It's perfectly normal. It is 100% normal. There's nothing to feel silly about at all. And yeah, just kind of let go, or as Larry Flint once said, relax, it's just sex. In this case, relax, it's just masturbation.
All right, tell us about question number 4 here, Kevin.
Okay, number 4. Can you talk about butt plugs for men and women and how to use it together? Butt plugs. All right. Yeah, we can talk about that.
We thought we should insert that one in there.
Haha, pun completely intended. Okay, so the first thing I would say about butt plugs for men and women is that, yes, you can indeed use butt plugs for both men and women. And if you're a guy, it doesn't make you gay because somehow you've used a butt plug.
Yes.
I mean, we just need to come out and say it, right? Because I
Absolutely.
know some men are thinking about that.
Number 2, yes, it can get a little bit messy, and yes, there could be some poop on a butt plug, little remnants of things if you haven't cleaned up fully well, or if you're just like whatever, how it is in your health. The healthier you are, the more bowel movement regularly, the better it is. You don't have to freak out about like giving yourself like an enema or things like that. It's really fine. Like shower, put a little finger in your ass with a little soap, clean it up. You know you're ready to go, and that's good enough.
Comes with the territory.
It does. So just get over it. Don't get too crazy about that.
Yeah, and so how can you use it? Well, it depends. I would say the most basic way is to simply have it in there while you're making love. And one of the things that can do is simply increase the sensations.
So what I was thinking was I was seeing 2 different scenarios. Number 1 is, okay, maybe explore for yourself on your own before you play with a partner with a butt plug. Remember that anuses don't self-lubricate. So lube is absolutely essential with butt plugs, okay? So either you use a silicone lube or a coconut oil or castor oil or almond oil, whatever you like. We're not going to get into lubes in this episode, but make sure you have lube and use it on yourself first, because it's a weird sensation. It's different to be penetrated anally, to insert the thing, and try to do both the insertion and the removal, because you're going to learn a lot. Like, for example, don't just pull on the butt plug like this when you pull it out. This really hurts, especially if you like clamping on it because it's scary, and then it can really hurt. So once you understand on your own how it works, and maybe that you don't just put it in, you massage around the anus, you spread the butt cheeks, you play with it, you insert it a little bit, and then wait for the anus to open up and relax, and then insert it more. This is a slow process. This is not just a boom, it's in. Like sometimes you see in movies, or it's like they just stick a finger up the ass. It's like, no, take your time to do this, whether it's a finger or it's a butt plug, right? And once you're more accustomed to it on your own, there are a few ways you can incorporate it in your sex life. So one way that we've done it is I played with it on my own, and then I would walk around the house and be like, guess what I have? And then we made love while I had put it in myself. And so that was a good way to incorporate it. We did it where we would say, okay, today we're going to do a prostate massage, or if it was me, just like an anal massage, and we'll play with the leave it on, and then like Kevin said earlier, then we do a whole thing around that, put it on, then make love. Another option is it literally can become a foreplay thing, right? And so I think like it's doing both. I don't know. I mean, you could potentially play both with your own butt plug. And so you each put it in each other, or you each do it on your own next to one another. I mean, there's so many combinations. It's so exciting.
Right? You know, and I would add to that too, that not all butt plugs are created equal.
Yeah.
The shape of it actually is kind of important, because some shapes just don't stay in and others do. So, and there's many different sizes. We would recommend starting out with something really small until you get used to it. Otherwise, it can be kind of painful. Of course, absolutely use lube and clean it very, very well. And if you share it with your partner, if you share the same one, make sure after you're done, like if it's the kind you can boil or whatever, but like clean it really well.
You brought a good point with the different shapes, because you want to have a stem, right? It's called a stem, right?
Something that you can use to pull it out with.
Yeah, it needs to be long enough, because I started with smaller butt plugs because I'm not really into big things in my ass. Some people love it, but if you start much smaller. But what we found was really that stem that sticks out from the butt plug needs to be longer, because we had a shortened one. We had this really cutesy little butt plug.
Yeah, they can disappear.
Well, no, it didn't disappear. Remember, as soon as I would have an orgasm, I literally like shooted it out of my anus.
Well, that's because it's not the right shape.
Yes.
And it's the part that's near the stem. If it's too round, there's nothing to grip onto, and they can just go flying.
But if you go to a sex store, they're also super knowledgeable, and tell them what you're looking for and that you're like a novice, and they'll give you really good advice.
Don't be afraid to ask them questions, because like seriously, they work in a sex store.
Yes.
Like they're loving this stuff. When people come up and ask these questions, they'll come up, well, see, I use this one, and let me tell you why, and like this is my like they'll go all out for you on that one.
All right. What do you think? Are we good for today? We didn't get all our questions, but we've got more, and we might do another episode at another time.
Yeah, we kind of are at the time limit. Darn, we have more questions to cover. Well,
we love your questions. Keep them coming. Pun intended. And we've got a few more in stock. So we usually make episodes when we get enough questions to make a full episode. So if that episode sparked more questions for you, feel free to email us. The email is into the link, the episode link. We love those questions. We put them together. We hope that today was really helpful, and that it got you to start to think about new things, new ways of approaching your sexuality, embracing your body, playing with toys. I had fun with this.
Me too. And just know that, one of the things you learn from all of these questions is that whatever questions you have, or whatever things you think about your own body or experiences you've had, you're not alone. And that's probably one of the biggest things that you can take away, is that there's tons of other people who have very similar things, and it's totally normal.
And there's no such things as silly questions. Get them out there, embrace it, so you can move past that.
That's right. All right, everybody, that's all the time we have for this episode, and we will see you next week. We hope you liked this episode of the Love Lab podcast. If you enjoyed this show, leave a comment and share it with your friends.
And if you want more, we have an entire digital library with the best sex tips and relationship advice at CelineRemy.com. That's CelineRemy.com. So join us in the Sex Vault to continue this adventure.
Thanks for listening.
And remember, you're amazing.